Energy is often thought of as something simple, something we either have or we don't, yet it is one of the most intricate indicators of our internal state. When blood sugar rises beyond its optimal range, the shift is rarely abrupt or dramatic at first. Instead, it begins as a subtle whisper, a quiet disturbance in the daily rhythm of the body. You may find yourself waking up already feeling drained, as if the morning sun carries less warmth than usual. Tasks that once seemed effortless now require more mental effort, and small decisions become unexpectedly heavy. Fatigue, in this sense, is not mere tiredness. It is the body's way of signaling that its cellular engines are struggling to manage energy efficiently. Cells rely on glucose as a primary fuel, yet they require insulin to process it. When blood sugar levels remain high, insulin may be working overtime, and cells can become resistant to its effects. This resistance is not something you can see, but you can feel it in the body's subtle signals. You may notice sudden irritability, an emotional tension that seems disproportionate to the circumstances. A minor inconvenience might provoke an unusually strong reaction, or a gentle conversation might trigger impatience or frustration. Mood swings, in this context, are not simply psychological, they are deeply biochemical. Each neurotransmitter, each hormone is influenced by the balance of sugar and insulin circulating through the bloodstream. High glucose alters their communication, and the mind becomes a mirror reflecting the internal metabolic strain. Sometimes energy surges appear unexpectedly, followed by sudden crashes, as if your body is trying to catch up with itself. These oscillations are a dialogue between the pancreas, the liver, and the muscles, an attempt to maintain homeostasis despite the imbalance. It is a reminder that energy is not merely an abstract concept or a matter of willpower. It is a direct reflection of cellular function and metabolic harmony. Observing these changes requires a certain mindfulness, a willingness to notice the quiet fluctuations of mood and vitality that accompany elevated blood sugar. It is an invitation to see the body as a sensitive, responsive system, one that communicates continuously through sensations, emotions, and patterns of performance. When you begin to interpret fatigue and irritability in this way, they transform from frustrating obstacles into meaningful signals. They indicate that your body is asking for attention, for understanding, for adjustments in diet, movement, or rest that may restore balance. This perspective allows you to approach health not as a list of do's and don'ts, but as a dialogue with your own physiology, where energy levels and emotional stability are not just outcomes, but messages guiding you toward greater harmony with the intricate biochemical symphony that sustains life. The body speaks constantly, often in ways we overlook because the messages are subtle, gradual, or easily dismissed. High blood sugar does not announce itself loudly at first. It sends signals through physical symptoms that we might mistake for minor inconveniences or ordinary fatigue. One of the earliest and most consistent signs is an unquenchable thirst, a persistent need to drink even when you feel you have had enough. This is not simply dehydration, it reflects the kidneys working overtime to filter excess glucose from the bloodstream, a task that strains the delicate structures designed for fluid balance. Alongside thirst comes frequent urination, another manifestation of the body's attempt to expel the surplus sugar. These actions, while mechanical, carry a message about the unseen burden accumulating within. Vision changes often follow, subtle blurriness that drifts in and out, which occurs because elevated glucose affects the lens of the eye and the tiny blood vessels in the retina. What seems like a minor inconvenience in daily life, a difficulty reading a sign, a momentary fuzziness when focusing, can be the early echo of metabolic stress. Infections, too, begin to surface with unusual frequency, as if the immune system is quietly compromised. Cuts that once healed quickly linger, yeast infections appear with greater recurrence, and minor colds take longer to resolve. Each of these experiences is not random. They are the physical consequences of sugar's influence on circulation, cellular repair, and the immune response. Pain, tingling, or numbness may also emerge in the extremities, sometimes so faint that it is ignored. This is the nervous system signaling that persistent glucose elevation can slowly damage delicate nerve fibers, interfering with the seamless communication between the brain and the body. All these physical cues, the thirst, the urination, the blurred vision, the infections, and the nerve sensations interconnect to form a larger narrative about internal imbalance. The body, in essence, is communicating its needs and its struggles. Recognizing these symptoms requires careful observation, a willingness to notice patterns rather than dismiss anomalies as temporary discomforts. Each symptom, while individually minor, contributes to a mosaic of warning signs, highlighting that what is occurring internally can not always be seen but can be felt and interpreted. By attending to these messages, by acknowledging the physiological dialogue unfolding beneath the surface, one gains the opportunity to intervene before imbalance escalates into chronic disease. This perspective transforms daily experiences, from the inconvenience of frequent bathroom trips to the subtle fuzziness in vision, into a meaningful conversation with one's own biology, where each physical manifestation is a guide, a signal pointing toward the necessity of mindful adjustments in diet, activity, and rest that may restore balance, and toward a deeper understanding of the remarkable processes that sustain life.
Our skin and mouth are often overlooked as mirrors of internal health, yet they provide some of the clearest signals that something is amiss beneath the surface. When blood sugar remains elevated, the effects ripple outward, silently influencing the body's external tissues. You may notice patches of darkened skin forming in areas such as the neck, underarms, or folds of the body, subtle shadows that at first seem merely cosmetic. These changes are the result of insulin resistance and chronic inflammation, a quiet yet profound dialogue between glucose and the skin cells. Similarly, wounds that once healed quickly now linger, as if the body's natural repair processes are slowing under persistent metabolic stress. Even minor cuts or scrapes can take longer to close, reflecting the diminished efficiency of cellular regeneration and the impact of high glucose on circulation. Oral health, too, becomes a storyteller of internal imbalance. Gums may become inflamed, bleed easily, or seem perpetually sensitive, while recurring infections or toothaches indicate that elevated sugar levels are feeding bacteria and challenging the immune system. These signs are not isolated. They are interconnected markers of how high blood sugar disrupts the intricate equilibrium of tissue repair, inflammation, and vascular function. Observing them requires a heightened awareness, a willingness to see small changes as significant rather than dismissing them as trivial. The body communicates in layers, and the skin and oral tissues often speak first when internal harmony is threatened. Even the sensation of itchiness or dryness can carry meaning, subtle reminders that the microcirculation is compromised, that nutrients are not reaching tissues efficiently, and that inflammation is quietly rising. Attuning to these messages transforms ordinary self-care routines into acts of observation and insight. Brushing teeth, washing hands, or noticing skin texture becomes more than a habit. It becomes a form of listening to the body's narrative, interpreting the biochemical signals encoded in appearance and sensation. When we pay attention to these outward signs, we engage in a dialogue with our physiology, understanding that elevated blood sugar is not just a number on a lab report, but a dynamic force influencing tissues, nerves, and immune function. By cultivating this awareness, subtle changes in the skin or mouth become early warnings, opportunities to adjust nutrition, activity, or lifestyle before more severe complications develop. In essence, the body provides a roadmap if we are willing to read it carefully, and the external cues, skin discoloration, slow healing wounds, gum sensitivity, offer invaluable guidance. They invite reflection, not alarm, and highlight that the pursuit of health is as much about perception and mindfulness as it is about interventions or treatments, a continuous conversation between the body's surface and its internal environment, where every visible sign carries profound insights into the hidden processes sustaining life and signaling the need for attentive care. The effects of elevated blood sugar extend far beyond the visible body, reaching into the realm of the nervous system and the mind, where subtle disturbances quietly unfold. When glucose remains high, it can influence nerve function in ways that are easily overlooked until they begin to disrupt daily life. Brain fog, for instance, is one of the most common manifestations. It is not simply forgetfulness or distraction. It is the result of neurons struggling to communicate efficiently under the strain of fluctuating glucose and insulin levels. Cognitive clarity depends on a delicate balance of energy supply, neurotransmitter production, and blood flow, and even slight metabolic imbalance can tip this equilibrium, leaving the mind feeling hazy, uncoordinated, or slow. Tingling, numbness, or unusual sensations in the hands, feet, or other extremities provide a tangible counterpart to this mental experience, as the peripheral nerves experience stress or early damage caused by prolonged exposure to high sugar. These sensations may begin subtly, perhaps as a faint prickling or a sense of heaviness, easy to dismiss, yet they are the nervous system's way of signaling that its function is being compromised. For some, there may be heightened sensitivity, discomfort from sensations that were previously unnoticed, or intermittent pain that seems disproportionate to ordinary stimuli. In every case, the body is communicating, using nerve endings as messengers to indicate that a complex internal imbalance is affecting both sensation and coordination. The interplay between brain function and metabolic health is profound, revealing that mental and emotional experiences are not isolated from physical processes. Difficulty concentrating, lapses in memory, or delayed reaction times are subtle yet meaningful reflections of this connection, reminding us that our cognitive performance is intimately tied to the biochemical environment. By paying attention to these outward signs, we begin to see that elevated blood sugar is not just a concern for organs or circulation. It is a factor shaping thought, perception, and sensory experience. Observing them requires a heightened awareness, a willingness to see small changes as significant rather than dismissing them as trivial. The tingling in a fingertip, the sudden lapse in focus, or the mental fatigue experienced in routine tasks becomes more than a nuisance. It becomes a meaningful message, a call to attend to underlying metabolic processes and make informed adjustments. In this sense, neurological and cognitive signals act as early warnings, offering insight into the unseen stresses of elevated blood sugar, inviting reflection, care, and curiosity. They demonstrate the profound integration of body and mind, showing that maintaining metabolic health is not only about numbers or test results, but about preserving the seamless dialogue between cells, nerves, and consciousness. Each signal is an opportunity to listen deeply, interpret carefully, and respond thoughtfully, understanding that the mind and nervous system are not isolated observers, but active participants in the body's ongoing conversation about balance, energy, and overall well-being.
When elevated blood sugar persists over time, it begins to send stronger, more urgent signals, an early whisper of diabetes waiting to emerge. This is not a sudden occurrence, but a gradual process where the body's intricate systems strain to maintain balance and compensate for chronic metabolic stress. You may notice subtle shifts that feel almost ordinary at first: unexplained changes in weight, moments of excessive hunger, persistent fatigue that sleep alone cannot resolve, or wounds and infections that seem to linger longer than they should. These experiences are not random or trivial. They are the body's way of warning that internal regulation is faltering.
Every organ, every cell is engaged in a delicate choreography of glucose management, and when the pancreas, liver, and muscles struggle to coordinate, small disturbances begin to manifest in ways that touch both the physical and emotional realms. Feeling unusually hungry despite eating adequately is not simply a matter of appetite. It reflects cells that are unable to absorb glucose efficiently, sending constant signals of deprivation to the brain. Fatigue is more than tiredness. It is the body's quiet protest against ongoing inefficiency in energy distribution. Recurrent infections and slow-healing wounds reveal the immune system working under strain, weakened by the persistent burden of elevated sugar and the inflammatory environment it fosters. Unexplained weight fluctuations can similarly signal deeper metabolic disruption as the body attempts to store or release energy in response to hormonal imbalance. Observing these symptoms requires attentiveness and curiosity, a willingness to see them as meaningful information rather than random inconvenience. They are not alarms meant to provoke fear, but signals to intervene thoughtfully and responsibly, to engage with nutrition, activity, and lifestyle adjustments in a way that honors the body's intelligence. Understanding these early indicators of diabetes transforms awareness into action, offering the possibility of halting progression before chronic disease takes hold. It is a call to listen closely, to recognize that the body communicates persistently and with subtlety when its systems are challenged. Each symptom, whether it is fatigue, unusual hunger, slow-healing wounds, or changes in weight, offers insight into the hidden processes that sustain life, revealing the intricate interplay between glucose, insulin, cellular function, and overall health. In paying attention to these signs, one is not simply identifying risk factors. One is engaging in a dialogue with the body, responding with informed choices, and cultivating a deeper understanding of how metabolic health shapes every aspect of existence. Diabetes is often framed as a distant or abstract threat, but in reality, it begins as a conversation between the body and its caretaker, with persistent high blood sugar leaving breadcrumbs of insight along the way. Recognizing these messages early is an act of awareness, self-compassion, and respect for the remarkable complexity of human physiology, a way to honor the subtle intelligence of the body and respond with care before imbalance evolves into chronic illness.